Hello, this is Ariella Carmel, and I'm at Calcalist and Bank Leumi's Tech and Invest conference in Miami. I'm joined by David Kaiserman, former president at Lanar Ventures.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for joining me, David.
Thanks for having me today.
So can you start off by telling me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of change within the VC market?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just start with sort of a little background on me because I think it helps frame sort of the comments. So I spent the last 18 years, as you said, at Lanar. I was somewhat of an intrapreneur in that I worked within a large public company. I built businesses, I financed businesses, I ran businesses, and I gained an unbelievable appreciation for the need to get things done. I left a couple years ago to join our family office to continue the investments that we made prior, but with our own money. And you would think that change is somewhat small, but it's actually been eye-opening to me. In that I get to see the perspective of how young companies are finding their way to maturity and success through the different lens of an entrepreneur, not an intrapreneur. And in doing so, there's some interesting foundational facts about the U.S. venture market that I think are helpful in understanding how the Israeli markets and why they're so exciting and why I'm so excited to support the work that Calcalist does and CTech does and all the businesses in Israel. And, you know, the first thing I would say about the U.S. venture markets is that it's a market that's incredibly tolerant of failure. Today, businesses that are young and starting, funds that are young and starting, can fail 80+% of the time. Now, in our life, 80% failure is a hard thing to swallow.
Right.
Even the flip side of that, 20% failure is an incredibly difficult thing to really follow. If you think about industries like telecommunications, they work to 99.99999%, 5 nines reliability. If you went to your doctor's office and they said to you, today's a bad day, you came in for your physical, you have a 20% chance of dying. It would be unacceptable. In almost every aspect of our life, we have expectations of ourselves that we're going to succeed more often than not. But in our earliest stages of investing, that's not the case. And the model that's been pursued has been a model of pattern matching, trying to find people that match the archetype of Silicon Valley investor. But a lot of those archetypes are people that are very good at spotting problems, but maybe don't have the experience in solving those problems. And in the course of doing pattern matching and looking for problem spotters, we have disenfranchised the people that are capable of problem solving but have not gotten to a place where they match the archetype. And so the club is very much mysterious to the outside world.
Right.
It's very coveted, but at the same time, it doesn't bear much relation to the realities in which we live. Fast forward to why I'm so excited about Israel. Israel is a country that can't afford to fail.
So it's very different in terms of its tolerance of
The tolerance
failure.
for failure is much lower, born from necessity and not from the pursuit of a problem that you want to spot. And Israelis as a culture are born to solve problems. And so when you take problem solving and the tolerance for failure being very low and you bring that to places like the US, it's not unusual why there's been such explosive technology and explosive opportunity for people to actually succeed and the levels of success. And so when we look at the US private capital markets, seed markets, venture markets, growth markets, it's changing.
Do you see it mimicking more the culture of the Israeli market in that sense?
I see investors being less tolerant of failure. And I actually think failure is a cancer on the fabric of innovation, right? We should expect more of ourselves. And we should expect where we innovate to be more consistent with how we live. And so when we allow ourselves to fail 80% of the time and we look for problems that we spot and not ones that we can solve, we create an environment that is not optimal. And so what gets me really excited is when we learn from the outside world, it's not just Israel, right? And it's not just tech, and it's not just the battlefield, it's agriculture. It's all the important components of life, and they're battle-tested in places where failure is not an option.
Right.
That's a really great investment model, and you're seeing every major fund set up an Israeli office. Why? Because the tolerance for failure is not high.
So zeroing in on the Israeli market, you've been an active investor for
Yeah.
a long time. Can you talk a bit more about what appeals to you about the market in this point in time, especially amid a lot of turmoil, obviously, that the country has been experiencing in the last year and a half?
Yeah, we're stress testing the need to not fail. Case in point. I mean, everybody looks naturally to the battlefield, but Israel's an arid climate. It's a desert, right? What comes out of Israel? Solar technology, water technologies, right? Where do they start from? They may have started in military intelligence, born from necessity, but now they're being applied to practical everyday solutions. And so when you have companies like Waze that just changed how we drive, right? And Solar Edge that changed how we power solar in this country. And you look at the work ethic and the rigor and the relentless pursuit of succeeding and not failing, you don't have that here. And maybe it's because we as a country enjoy so many luxuries and privileges that we don't have to. But I would just say when we expect of ourselves something lower than what is expected of the rest of the world, we do ourselves a massive disservice. And so, Israeli technologies, South American technologies, all of these environments work under a scenario that is much more consistent with an investor's view. And then the other question is, how do we get everybody that doesn't look like that Silicon Valley, Harvard, Ivy League educated venture capital investor who sits and judges you? Right? How do we get that person to be part of the solution, but not leading the charge?
Do you think then that adversity or necessity is a requirement for success or innovation in this field?
It's definitely an indicator and a driver. I don't know if it's a prerequisite because I think you could emulate it in many other places, but it's a really, really attractive attribute of what you want to be looking for. And at the end of the day, what we need to work hard at doing, and I just will repeat this over and over, is we need to invite those that know how to solve problems into the club.
Right.
Look, Silicon Valley has become a parody. I mean, there are television shows, right, called Silicon Valley about people, and you're part of the club. I was looking at a picture of a startup team that raised $50 million. Every person in that picture was below 30 years old. That's not to say being below 30 is dispositive of the fact that you won't succeed. But when you look at the trajectory of success and the history and experience, it really is much about how do we create a club, right, of difference, as opposed to how do we embrace a universe of people that are participatory in that success. And there is an unintended consequence of pattern matching to problem spotting folks. You disenfranchise the comfort from people who know how to solve problems to say, I want to go over there and I want to solve that next problem. And so it's not one or the other, it's a mix. I'm not saying you got to throw out all the problem spotting and only focus on problem solving, but we got to increase the quotient of problem solving in the country tremendously. And we have to make sure that we have an opportunity to give people a chance to participate, because look at all the wonderful things that are happening. I mean, we have 700 people in this conference. Investors, they're not here because of the food, right?
Not just, at
Not
least.
just the food, right? But they are here because there's something special happening. And that specialness is when you back people that do not accept failure as their business model, you're going to be in a much better place.
Well, on that note, we're going to close the conversation, but thank you so much, David, and enjoy the conference.
Thanks for having me in.
My pleasure.